Okay, so here's my comparison video of the all-new Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra to the all-new Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus. Let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, let's go ahead and talk some key differences here, starting off with price and configs. The Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here will run you $1199 for the base storage, 256 gigs. And in terms of configs, these can go at up to 1 terabyte. So meaning you would have the 256 gigs, you have the 512 gigs, and you will also have the 1 terabyte model. And that specific model would go with 16 gigs of RAM as opposed to 12 gigs of RAM for the 256 and the 512. The Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here will start off with 256 gigs as well, but it can only go at up to 512 gigs in terms of storage. So 256 gigs, 12 gigs of RAM, and 512 gigs, 12 gigs of RAM. Keep in mind, of course, that the internal storage of both tablets, whether you get the 256, the 512, the 1 terabyte, these are both expandable at up to an additional 1 terabyte using a micro SD card. Now, the biggest difference would be just the sizes, right? So, I could be palming the S9 Ultra here, but trust me, this is like a mini TV. It's a gigantic display. You're looking at 14.6 inches here as opposed to a 12.4 inches on this one. And trust me, the average person already finds this 12.4 inches heavier than the normal or the typical, average tablet. This is already a large tablet. Obviously, with displays like this, that's also going to dictate the level of, user experience that you get, right? The general user experience is going to be fairly the same, but depending on the type of project, right? Meaning if you need something where you are looking for something with a larger canvas, you're better off using something like the 14.6 inches that you have here. The other difference that you will notice between these two displays would be that the bezels on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here are thinner than what you have on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here. Now, they're all uniform, which is fantastic. I love to see that, you have that uniform set of bezels. They're all uniform on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus, but on the Tab S9 Ultra here, you'll see that it's all uniform all the way to the top here where you have the camera module or the selfie camera module. You get that little notch there, which by the way, you tend to ignore or even forget that it exists once you start using the tablet. I'm talking a few minutes into it, you don't even realize that that notch is there. It's a little bit the same effect that you get with the iPhone, right? Like the previous generation iPhone, even the current iPhone that has that pill-shaped camera at the top, you still get it. You can see it there, but once you start using it, you forget that it's there. But anyway, so very thin bezels. It's just beautiful display on the Tab S9 Ultra here. Larger, as I mentioned earlier, meaning that opening websites or watching movies and things like that is definitely going to be different. If you were to just open, standard websites, you would get more content on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra as opposed to the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus, which again, by the way, is already a pretty large tablet, but still you do get more content displayed on the Tab S9 Ultra. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm always dropping this type of content constantly. But anyway, so the Tab S9 Ultra also, surprisingly, well, at least to those of you who are not familiar, this is surprisingly thinner than, the smaller, well, relatively smaller tablet, the relatively smaller Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here. So this is thinner, but despite being thinner, because it's already a large tablet, it's heavier than what you have on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here, meaning user experience as it relates specifically to portability is going to be better, right, on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus because it's a relatively more portable tablet than the relatively heavier Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here. So if you're the type who likes to use his or her tablet, at night in bed, kind of propped up or holding it up as you lay in bed, you might be better off going with the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here, because if you were to drop that on your face, it would probably cause less damage than if you were to drop this gigantic, slob of a tablet on top of your face, right? So in terms of comfort, portability, both, by the way, are fairly portable tablet because as I mentioned, this guy is really thin and still light, but when compared to the Tab S9 Plus here, it is heavier, but still very portable, even more portable than the laptop. Obviously, you could definitely stick this in your backpack and be on the go with it. But when we compare both tablets, when it comes down to portability, obviously the Tab S9 Plus would be the winner simply because it's more comfortable to use. Even gaming on here on the Tab S9 it's a bit more doable. Like it's still a large tablet, but it's a bit more doable than it is on the Tab S9 Ultra here. Definitely doable on both, but in terms of comfort, you're better off just having the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra just sitting on a flat surface and maybe using a controller or something like that in order to really enjoy gaming. Whereas on the Tab S9 Plus, you can still enjoy gaming just by holding and using the tablet itself as a controller. But anyways, let's go ahead and keep going with the key differences here. On the front display of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here, you would have a single selfie camera here, as opposed to the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra, where you do have a dual setup for the selfie camera. They're both 12 megapixel lenses. One is a wide and the other one is an ultra wide. Whereas on the Tab S9 Plus here, what you have is a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. They both do support auto framing, but on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here, you do get an overall better quality. And before we go to the back, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra just seems brighter. It just seems brighter than the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here. We do know that the nit on the S9 Ultra here is going to be 930, which is pretty bright for something like this. But the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 is also bright. Now, it could be amplified on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here simply because it's a larger tablet, so maybe you notice that brightness a bit more than you would on the Tab S9 Plus here. Now, both displays are dynamic AMOLED displays, so absolutely beautiful displays, inky black, inky reds, like I like to say. Very, very nice displays. Now, that was that for the display. You pretty much will have the same stuff, right? So, volume rocker, power button, the mics with the extra mic compared to what we had last year, you will have all of that same stuff. You have the SD card, the micro SD card slot there. You have, of course, the USB Type-C port at the bottom, 3.2, and then you have the quad speaker setup. Obviously, because this is a larger tablet, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra, that's what I mean. It's a larger tablet. The speakers on there are actually larger and are louder than what you have on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here. Now, if we flip to the back here, this is actually one of the things that separates, these tablets from the previous generation, right? So that look, that's the upgraded look when we compare to the previous gen of the flagship tablets that Samsung pushes out there. On the back, you have two single cameras. That's the camera module. When compared to last year where you had kind of a block of a module along with two camera arrays, now you have individual lenses to kind of go with that uniformity that Samsung is going after, right? Making sure that it kind of matches the look that you have on the, like this one, for example, the Fold, and my S23 Ultra is somewhere here. So that same look that Samsung is going for, you have that here. So this is a 13 megapixel wide lens along with an 8 megapixel ultra wide on the back here. And they both can shoot up to 4K at 30 and 60 frames per second. And of course can shoot also 1080p at 30 frames per second. That same bag also does contain the new matte strip, for the S Pen, like this one. And the S Pen, by the way, is interchangeable between both. The S Pen will be that same 2.8 millisecond latency, I believe it is, on either one. So you can use either pencil. There's no additional advantages from the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra versus the S Pen on the Tab S9 Plus. And that's going to be pretty much that on the back here, right? So it's essentially the same back along with that flash. I know I didn't highlight the flash. We had the flash, the antennas, and all that good stuff. So that is pretty much it. Now let's go ahead and talk inside now. Let's also talk additional specs on that display here. The resolution on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here is going to be 1848 by 2960, right? With that same 16 by 10 aspect ratio, the same one that we had on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra from last year, and the PPI here, so the pixel density here is going to be 239, which is kind of weird because last year the PPI on the Tab S8 Ultra was 240, so one off, even though it's the same size. But anyway, so that's that. On the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here, the resolution is going to be 1752 by 2800, I believe, with the PPI here being 266. And as I mentioned earlier, just picture quality is just so beautiful on both of these tablets, right? So whether we're talking scrolling, because they both support, high refresh rate at up to 120 hertz, and these are both dynamic AMOLED, so 120 hertz refresh rate and whatever is in between. And also a key thing that I want to mention here is I talked about 239 here for the PPI for the density and 266 here PPI density also. So on paper, it looks like things should be sharper on the S9 Ultra, on the S9 Plus, my mistake, on the S9 Plus here. But in reality, you can't really tell the difference because of just how good it is. But just keep in mind that if you're a specs stickler, you would just know that the PPI here is higher than what you have on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here. But again, in reality, just to the naked eye, it's very, very hard. I couldn't tell. They're just super sharp. I just could not tell the difference. And obviously, you get that 266 is higher on the S9 Plus here simply because it's a smaller tablet when compared to this, right? 14.6 inches as opposed to 12.4. It only makes sense that the PPI will be more intense there. Now, in terms of just the user experience, as I mentioned earlier, playing games here is really good. But if you're a content creator, let's say you want to create videos, you're going to be editing on your tablet, oh, you're definitely better off going with the Tab S9 Ultra here, right? You get a lot more. So for artists, I guess I should be specific, for artists, or if you just want a gigantic tablet, the Tab S9 Ultra will be the one to go for. So, editing videos, it just felt better on here. It's as if I was editing on a laptop. I've actually edited videos on all of these tablets just as test runs, and it just felt better on the S9 Ultra here. Now, in terms of the chipset here, the platform, I'm hoping you bear with me here. I know a lot of people are saying that I've been talking a lot faster in my last videos, just that there's so much to cover, and I've noticed that when I don't cover everything, there's still people coming and say, hey, you forgot to say this, you forgot to say that. And I know I'm not going to cover anything. I'm just talking fast so that I can cover as much as possible. So let's go ahead and talk platform here. What you have will be the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is just such a beast of a chipset, right? It's been amazing working specifically when it came down to video editing, right? So that's kind of how I typically test graphic or, GPU performance and even CPU performance. I typically would go, with just editing videos and just kind of compare that to the previous tablets that I have here. And the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 has been just magical. It's been fantastic, and you have that loaded in both of these. As I mentioned earlier, you do have the option to go for the 1 terabyte and get 16 gigs of RAM, as opposed to the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here, where, whether you go with 256 or 512, you will get 12 gigs of RAM. Multitasking has been awesome on either one of these, right? Again, the only difference between multitasking on the S9 Ultra and the S9 Plus here would simply be the size, right? Because you do get access to the same features. Samsung Dex is there. You can toggle, multiple windows going back and forth, all of that good stuff. So when it comes down to choosing one of these tablets, let's say based off of your workload, it's gonna go by, preference. Are you more productive when you work on a larger one, or are you more productive when you work on a relatively smaller one, because you might take it with you and, easily work off of it on a train, a metro, on a plane, or whatever the case may be. So it's gonna come down to you. But in terms of just performance, they've been excellent. They've been about the same. I did mention the S Pen earlier. Like I said, it's the same S Pen, right? All of the same features as last year. We are still waiting on the Creator Edition of this S Pen, and I suspect people who are going to be buying the Creator Edition of the Samsung S Pen are probably going to be going for the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here, because generally those would be artists. It's supposed to come with, even more features, especially geared towards artists. Now, beyond that, I don't have, too many things to say about the S Pen. Just make sure that you watch the more comprehensive review of either one of these tablets, where I break down, the Samsung S Pen here. Let's talk battery. Obviously, because this is a large tablet, you have a gigantic battery there. So what you have on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra is an 11,200 milliamp for the battery, whereas on the Tab S9 Plus here, you do have that same 10,090 milliamp that we had last year. With my usage, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra seems to last longer than the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here. That could just be me. Again, like I always say, I can't really tell you how long it will last with you, like what type of battery life you will be getting, but I can tell you that you definitely will be getting good battery life. I just can't tell based off of your type of usage compared to mine how long specifically it would last, but I can tell you that battery life is very good on these. On top of that, you do have, the new cooling chamber along with that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is super, super efficient, when it comes down to battery management. So you are definitely granted that once this thing learns your usage, top of that, the way you use your tablet, you will definitely be enjoying better battery life. Now, with all of this said, I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. I know there are, more differences that we can highlight here. I figured I'd just go ahead and go over some of the core differences. At least I could just give you my take. If you are in the market for a gigantic tablet, a large tablet, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra will be the one to go for. If you're an artist, then you probably should go for the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here. Now, if you are looking for something that is kind of like the best of both worlds, something large, not as small as the average tablet, then you should go for the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus. In fact, if I were to recommend this, I'm likely going to recommend the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here versus the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra. Not because it's a worse tablet, it's actually an even better tablet. I personally prefer this one. It's thinner, sleeker. It's just, it is such an amazing tablet to use. But I just think for the average, or for most people, the tablet, when it comes down to choosing between these two, of course, the better tablet for most people, not because of performance, not because of anything else, but just because of comfort, something that's a little bit more mainstream, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus would be the one to go for. But if you were to go ahead and go for the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra here, more power to you. Anyway, so that's just my take. I would love to get what you guys think of this review. What is your take on this? Did you order either one of this? I know a lot of you guys actually ended up ordering the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra and are absolutely loving it. But I would also like to hear from people who ordered the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus here. Let me know how you like it so far. I'll make sure to catch you in the comment section so that we can get that little back and forth going. Make sure to share this video if you know anyone who will be interested. Make sure to like the video also and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I always do. I'm also going to catch you in the next video. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.